and just let it go. Because the whole point is that you're supposed to be getting the answer effortlessly. Because listen, most of you guys are like setting goals and stuff. You would be setting a goal and you would just be like, I want to make $10,000.
32 and you assume
Ask
that
yourself,
life
like, where
is
did
a
that goal
game
even
of
come from?
dice.
You know where that goal came
18.
from? You'd go online
But
and you'd
this
see a
is
bunch of
not
people on
so,
YouTube
for
videos
life
who
is
claim
path
that you
and
can make
goal,
$10,000
rooted in
per month. So
evolution and
automatically
in
for
the
you, you're just like,
becoming
that's my
unto
goal. It
being.
seems like
Do
that's
you
what
not
you're about. That's my
finally
goal.
want to
Bro, you got
comprehend
this goal from
this?
somewhere else, from something outside of
19.
you. So this is
You
just
human
programming.
beings
The
of
real
Earth,
you
you
doesn't
are
really
deaf
want this
and
goal.
dumb and
This is just you
blind in
thinking,
dense
writing down some stuff,
darkness,
just
and
to feel
you
like
do not
you're doing
want
something.
to hear the truth, and you do not want to speak about the truth, and you do not want to see the truth. 20. You go astray yourself, and you also let yourself be driven astray by false leaders of error, by those who are the mighty of the nation's leaders, and by those who are priests of sects and false religions with gods and idols. 21. And also speak further to the human beings in instructing manner. The JHWH speaketh to the prophet. What do you think, when your self-elected punishment of your unrighteous life cometh over you? 22. And what do you think, when your hour overtaketh you? 23. Will you still continue to call on the gods and idols of your own making, or which are erroneously appointed by yourself? 24. Or will you call for the truth and for creation, which will be consolation for you in the hour of anxiety and fear? 25. Truly, so it will be, because you will call for truth and for justice and for creation in your distress. 26. And well, when you become honest, and when your reluctance against the truth becomes painful to you, in case you are still able to do so, you may truthfully recognize the signs of creation and of truth in the words of the JHWH and of the prophet, and also become righteous, so you no longer are one of the unrighteous. 27. And the truth is patient and long-suffering, as creation also is patient, and the JHWH and the prophet also are patient, those who in infinite patience and love are instructing and waiting, so you find and walk the path of the righteous. 28. And further instruct the ignorant and the unrighteous, and the seeking and hoping. The JHWH speaketh to the prophet. Only those can find the truth and absorb and understand it, who listen to the truthful words of the prophet, and who see the truthful signs which he demonstrates to them, and which are also given by creation or by the JHWH. 29. But all those are dead in life, who taboo and disavow the truth and its signs, for they live creation estranged and are disinclined toward the laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order of creation. 30. And the living dead search for other signs of truth and other words of truth than those, which are truly given, for they seek signs in the truth and lies and in sorcery and fraud, and also in magical and mystical hocus pocus. 31.
Pocus.
And those are the living dead, who say and demand that they would immediately believe in this and such matter, if they could touch the signs and truth with their hands. 32. But it is denied them to touch the signs or to step close to them, because their thinking and aim are toward destruction and toward falsehood, so they spread danger for all life. 33. And because it is denied them to touch the signs or to step close to them, so they persecute and deny the signs and their truth. 34. Therefore to them the only way is given that they must be learning and recognizing within themselves and by their own strength, without being able to touch the signs or to step close to them, so that they become knowing only by the exploration of truth within themselves. 35. And the JHWH has the power to send down signs, and also his own, who are his helpers, as signs of truth, as also creation sends down signs every day and so proves its existence and truth. 36. And the prophet also has learned to do signs of truth, as has been done by the prophets heretofore and since times of old. 37. Only, man of earth has changed during the time which has passed by, and he has become manic for proving power by seeing and touching and hearing. 38. For the intention of effort has vanished from man that the truth should be earned by one's own strength of thinking and searching and recognition. 39. He also has changed in a manner toward error that he only will accept that as truth, which he can touch with his hands, and what he can see with his eyes, and what he can hear with his ears. 40. But this is the way of falsity and of the purely material, which defies and mocks every effort of self-thinking, of self-feeling, of self-searching, of self-seeking and of self-recognition of any solution and truth. 41. Thus thereby the way for the exploration of truth is not given in the finding of truth, wherefore no sign should be given or only very scarce signs by the JHWH and by the prophet, which are proof of the truth. 42. The word of truth is given, and this is fully sufficient, to reveal the teachings of truth to those who are willing to approach and bear the trouble of acquisition through their own strength. 43. And furthermore the JHWH speaketh to the prophet. Teach the human beings that not all treasures of knowing, of ability, of love, of truth and of wisdom of creation lie with the JHWH and with the prophets, for the treasures and the secrets of creation are immeasurable and never graspable to a human being, for creation is the immeasurable secret. 44. And speak that the JHWH and the prophet do not know about the hidden part of creation, for creation alone knows about its hidden part, and man is able only to grasp and recognize the revealed part. 45. And speak instructingly to the human beings that neither the JHWH nor the prophet come close to creation, and neither the JHWH nor the prophet are representatives of creation. 46. And the JHWH and the prophet are human beings of fulfilling wisdom, love, and truth and of ability and knowledge, and above them standeth immeasurably much higher creation as immeasurable secrets. 47. And the JHWH is a human being of recognition and wisdom, and so the prophet also shall be, to whom is revealed sometimes by the JHWH the instruction in word and writing, which he handeth down and hath to instruct the generations of men, to whom he is adjoined to. 48. And neither the JHWH nor the prophet are punishing nor punishment demanding, and they practice neither violence nor force, neither do they instruct that violence or force should be practiced. 49. Verily, the JHWH hath sent out spirit teachers to the earth to all generations of men and nations, who had fallen to gods and idols and error teachings and who lived in error and confusion. So they 33.
Those are all the prophets that came.
34 were visited by misery and hardship of their own making. Before the prophet of the new age came another time an incarnation of his own call to duty. 50.
Exactly.
And the prophets were sent to them, to teach and to instruct them in the truth, so they should become free from hardship and misery. 51. But the nations of earth did not trouble themselves about the truth, neither through misery and hardship, nor through the teaching of truth by the prophets, whom they slandered and persecuted. 52. Their senses were hardened, as this is so also at the present time, and their evil and false thinking far from true life allowed them to continue to do everything wrong which they did heretofore, and which seemed to them as well done due to error teachings. 53. And willingly they forgot again the teachings of the JHWH and of the prophets, and willingly they forgot everything that had been imparted to them of truthful teachings, instructions and exhortations. 54. And with force they opened for themselves the doors to all things, until they were suddenly caught by the consequences of their evil lifestyle, while they still enjoyed everything they had given themselves wantonly in an unrighteous lifestyle. 55. Therefore they fell into despair and they murdered and killed each other in wars, and so they created infirmity and pestilence and they brought forth false and deadly legislation and new error teachings also, which were offered by priests and the power greedy and by sects and religions, who by their own power raised up gods and idols. 56. But the true prophets were persecuted and slandered by the people and by the unrighteous, and the teachings and the truth were trodden on. 57. But new spirit leaders were sent forth by the JHWH, and also prophets came in their own set of duty, who all the bringers and proclaimers of truth and truly only of glad tidings. 58. And the
What happened?
teachers and prophets also were warners of coming threatening events and warners of false lifestyles. 59. And they instructed all the willing and seekers of truth and also the unrighteous that there should be no anxiety and no fear and no sadness, if they recognize the truth and begin to live according to the truth. 60. But they taught that all those fall victim to self-incurred punishment, who are disobedient, unjust and wicked against the laws and recommendations of creation and against the truth. 61. And the instructing to the earth humans, the JHWH also speaks to the prophet. Do you not finally want to consider and grasp the truth, and do you not finally want to bend the truth? 62. Do not drive yourself away and always further away from the truth, which within your deepest inner self you truly are seeking and hoping for from morning till evening, and which hidden within you call upon, in your striving for the truthful truth of creation. 63. And verily, man seeketh the truth subconsciously and in his most inner hope, yet nevertheless he lives in unrighteousness as an unrighteous, because he is led astray by many false prophets of their own making, and by priests and fanatics and many types of sects and religions, which are directed by despots and other power greedy, by prophet greedy, by gods and idols and frauds. 64. Verily, peace and love shall be with the righteous, and peace and love shall be with those who seek the truth of creation. 65. Creation hath ordained that peace, love and mercy shall be rendered to everyone who unknowingly doth something evil or anything else against the laws and recommendations or against the sevenfold order, if thereafter followeth recognition and remorse and the path of truth is trodden. 66. Creation is all forgiving and merciful, and it also maketh clear its existence and love, so that the fallible recognize it in the truth and live according to its laws and recommendations. 67. And the signs of love of creation prove that with it is forgiveness for everything fallible, if the fallible is being corrected and life becomes righteous. 68. And the signs of love of creation prove that everything is being done erroneously and wrong, if other things, which are gods and other humans and also idols, are being worshipped besides creation. 69. Therefore, man shall not follow the evil desires and error teachings, so he adoreth and worshippeth nothing else besides creation. 70. But if man doth not honor this teaching, and if he doth worship or adore gods or idols or human beings, he truly walketh in error and is not one of the rightly guided. 71. The righteous and knowing are forbidden by common sense and intellect to call upon and worship gods and idols, so they cannot follow the evil desires of temptation toward wrong and error. 72. The JHWH and the prophet refer to the clear proof of creation, but you cast aside the proof, because you imagine yourself to be more knowing and wiser than creation itself, or than the JHWH and the prophet and the spirit leaders ever could do and be of themselves. 73. You desire signs and wonders as proof, but especially these shall remain sealed and turned away from you, for on the one hand you would not understand them, and on the other hand you would deny them in your lack of understanding and unrighteousness. 74. So as exception signs of truth through the JHWH and through the prophet are sparingly given, and only to those who are the truly righteous or who are becoming righteous. 75. Verily, only to the righteous and becoming righteous, the signs of truth are proof of the truth, so they shall see the signs of proof in sparing manner, which from time to time are given by the JHWH and by the prophet. 76. With creation lie the keys to the hidden, and only creation alone knows the hidden. 77. And that which is the hidden of creation is not graspable and recognizable by man, and also not by the JHWH and not by the prophet. 78. Therefore, the JHWH and the prophet can only be exploring, recognizing and instructing in those things, which are recognizable and explainable to man, and which can be explained to the JHWH and to the prophet by beings of light from the spheres of spirit accessible to them, and which are inaccessible to all men, which are not living in the knowledge, and love, and the wisdom and in the truth of those planes, in which the JHWH and the prophet live. 79. And whatever is the hidden with creation, that is its immeasurable secret, which will only become recognizable and graspable and understandable in the spirit of man, when at some future time he will enter into being of creation. 80. And it is truly creation, into which man at some future time findeth his homecoming, at a sooner or 35. 36 later time, measured depending on how his lives and how his works have been. 81. For it is given that man live and lead his life in righteousness and in wise fulfillment of the laws and recommendations of creation, so that he walk in constant evolution to fashion his efforts of just life conduct toward perfection, so that he change himself to spirit form and later to perfection, which granteth the homecoming into creation as final goal. 82. And verily, creation is life and the highest above all life, and thus it standeth above life and above death, as it also standeth as final goal of all evolution, so as true being, toward which man in unceasing effort through his evolution may strive. 83. And verily, through creation is given all life and all evolution, as also the love, the truth, the knowledge, the wisdom and the logical consequence, and also everything essential in nourishment and surroundings in life's portion of the material realm. 84. Thus, through creation everything is given totally which man needs for life and for development, yet nevertheless, he deviates from creation and its truth and sets gods and idols beside it, which only brings it in misery, trouble and distress and erroneous teachings in unending numbers. 85. And man's belief in gods and idols bringeth evil in great measure to the nations and generations of men, because due to belief in by gods and idols, by priests, power greedy, the ruling and profit seekers, false laws and recommendations are invented, which are paradoxical to the laws and recommendations of creation. 86. and the false laws and recommendations of sects and religions and the power greedy and profit seekers bring to the nations and generations of men only force and constraint and servitude and loss, for they altogether are not intending true leadership of man, but is enslavement and compelling violent penalty even at the minutest cause. 87. Therefore, the false laws and recommendations of sects and religions and of those ruling in tyranny, and of the power greedy and profit seekers do not bring justice and righteousness and freedom, but only judgment, violence, war, infirmity and death and manifold evil, so man individually is being characterized thereby. 88. And the power greedy, the profit seekers, the rulers and sects and religions and their priests split the united thinking of men into disunity in all things, and they cause confusion and hostility, so one is against the other, and so the neighbor commits violence against his neighbor, and so the son falls into enmity against his father and the daughter against her mother. 89. And the unrighteous, the power greedy, the profit seekers, the governing and rulers, and the priests and sects and religions, due to the might of their power and their false laws and recommendations drive the people together into war armies, to lead deadly battles and wars and power greed and hatred, against their brothers and sisters, against the children of their neighbor nation. 90. Yet man doth not heed the truth, and he furthermore disregardeth the truth, and if he seeth the signs of truth and heareth the words of truth, he only speaketh foolishly and denyingly about them. 91. But it hath been prophesied since time of old that the rejection of truth will bring evil and suffering and sorrow to the earthly generations of men and nations, and that the people will fall into misery and hardship and trouble, and verily hath this been so in steady sequence as hath been prophesied. 92. For every prophecy a certain time hath been set, when it will be fulfilled, and so it is given for the prophecies of the new age also, which have been written down since times of old, and which newly have been given through the prophet of the new age, and soon you will learn about it and have to endure the terrors and deaths, for the signs of the time are set and ensued in fulfillment which warn of the end time of the fulfillment of prophecies. 93. Yet man of earth continues to live in false belief, thinking and striving and acting, as everything has falsely been given by the erroneous laws and recommendations of sects and religions, and by tyrants and false rulers, so earth man is rebellious and strange toward all knowledge and all truth as he was since times of old. 94. But the truth of true knowledge has been taught to the generations of men since times of old and were already given to Adam. 95. Prophets were given to the generations of men and the nations of earth since times of old, as also were sent Enoch and Elijah, Jesaja and Jeremiah, and Jmaniel and Muhammad in direct succession and constant reincarnation, in addition to Johannes and Elias and Job and all the army of the other righteous and just, as they were Buddha, Zoroaster and Babaji and others also. 96. All were chosen and led and sent down partially by the JHWH and partially by themselves and in the knowledge and ability as prophets or spirit leaders to the generations of men and nations of earth. Yet they all were slandered and persecuted, and their teachings and their words of truth were falsified in misunderstanding or hatred, so therefrom originated misleading and false religions and sects. 97. And now a prophet hath been sent down to earth another time in his own fulfillment of duty, and another time the book of the word of truth is given, which is being revealed in understandable form, full of blessing and of true guidelines and to fulfill the earlier, so that the earthly generations of men and nations are taught and so that, finally, the fallible and the unrighteous shall be warned. 98. And this is the last time and for all times of time, that a prophet of such greatness is being sent, and who is law-giving, and that the book of the word of truth and the teaching of spirit also is given to the earthly generations of men, and never shall such return in all the future. 99. The truth and the prophet are given, and this shall be of validity from now on for all coming times, because all ordinances were destroyed by the human beings of earth, which would have made something else possible and the continued work of the prophet in the future also. 100. Therefore, now the last prophet of such importance for all times is given, and also the book of the word of truth only one final time, and a further scripture and a prophet of equal importance will not follow another time, but also a reformer will not follow, because everything in the book of the word of truth and through the prophet is given in his teaching of spirit in exhaustive form, so that the reformers and new teachings and prophets after the prophet of the new age will not and never be, and if yet some should come and call themselves sent one or reformers of their own making, then they are full of falsity and full of error, lying and betrayal. 101. Therefore no other prophet after the prophet of the New Age will exist, and also no reformer or sent one of a different type will exist, because the truth of the real truth is given by the prophet of the New Age. 37. 38. And it is the given truth of all truth, the all-encompassing truth, which cannot be reformed by as much as one tittle. 102. And this truthfully is the book of the word of truth, which is revealed through the JHWH and the prophet, and which is unchangeable and not in need of reform for all times. 103. The book of the word of truth is full of blessing to fulfill the earlier and true life, so that all human beings around the earth be warned and taught. 104. And this is the book of the word of truth for all, for the righteous as well as for the unrighteous, and it is not changeable or to be reformed by any tittle, neither by the power treaty and the governing nor by priests of sects and religions, and not by prophet seekers and doubters, and also not by false sent ones and false reformers and false prophets. 105. And the book of the word of truth is given for the instruction of the unrighteous and for the way showing of those who already in total or in part know about the truth and strictly adhere to the laws and recommendations of creation. 106. But who is more unrighteous than one who invents lies against creation, as is being done by the priests of sects and religions, and by false reformers, and by false sent ones and false prophets and power treaty and the prophet seekers, who lie and speak that to them is or that were revealed, yet while nothing has been revealed to them. 107. And who is more unrighteous than one who invents lies against the truth and against the laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order of creation, as is being done by priests of sects and religions, by frauds and degenerates and by prophet seekers and power treaty, who lie and speak that to them has been revealed this and that by the deceased from the realm of death or by spirit forms and demons from higher or lower planes, yet while nothing has been revealed to them, because this would not be possible for them, so they lie and deceive about this. 108. But they lie and deceive to let themselves appear as great to their fellow human beings and to believers of their error teachings, and also to satisfy their desires of selfishness and of self-exaltation and need for esteem, because they truly are the unrighteous and unable to lead a proper life, but which they want to hide by their lies and by deceit. 109. And in ignorance of truth, they lie to and deceive all, because the laws and recommendations of creation do not and never allow such and therefore make it impossible that human beings could establish a connection with the deceased or with spirit forms or demons of higher or lower planes, if this is not earned and gained by man by the level of universal love and universal truth and also by universal knowledge and universal wisdom, as these have to be given unto the JHWH and the prophets. 110. But when man has reached and arrived at this ability, then he truly has become knowing that the dead are not more knowledgeable than the living, so they cannot give advice or instruction and knowledge about the unknown to the living, and as the truly able knows this, he therefore abstains from every connection and communication with the deceased, and he also does not reveal the secret of his ability to human beings. 111. And as man has acquired this ability, then the next 7 higher planes of spirit forms and of spirit life open unto them, which are instructing them outside of his material life, but he restrains himself to call upon the higher planes on his own, because communication from the higher to the lower plane takes place only in instructive and rare form and is given and determined only by the higher plane. 112. And human beings of this ability do not and never reside among the people who are able to do such, yet those few, who are able ones among the generations of men, live in silence and in solitude, so they are not pressed and questioned or slandered and persecuted by the ignorant and by liars and deceivers. 113. Thus the truth is given that all are liars and deceivers, who declare themselves as conjurers and communicators with the deceased and with spirits and demons, and all those are liars and deceivers, who present themselves in this manner as magicians and mediums or as soothsayers, as also all are liars and deceivers, who perform magical and mystical acts and cults with all kinds of babble and assisting apparati and call themselves in this manner magician, medium, soothsayer or healer. 114. But there are some among the human beings of nations, who have true visions during sleep and during waking, and who are called seers and clairvoyants, and who truly see events of the past and future in clairvoyance. 115. But of those who have visions only few exist among every nation in real truthful manner, if they are free of belief thinking and free of sects and religions, if they are the truly knowing about the truth of creation and about its laws and recommendations and its sevenfold order. 116. But if they are not that, they add their own non-values to the values of the visions and thereby become betrayers of the truth, as the liars and deceivers are betrayers of the truth who invent visions as revelations, but which are not revealed to them, as occurs in great numbers by liars and deceivers in selfishness, profit-seeking and craving for esteem. 117. And many of those exist, who live wrongly and lie and deceive and who say and speak, that they could send down signs like creation and like the JHWH and like the prophet. 118. Yet they cannot do this and only by lying and deceit, as through jugglery, which is called witchcraft and delusion, or by other cheating of any kind, as also by mental power by which this or that is being pretended which is neither present nor existent. 119. Thus they are blasphemers against the truth and they also are losers and the lost, who howl and have their teeth chatter in life at every opportunity, but so also in dying and in death and in reincarnation, and therefore death conceals terror and horror for them and their own judgment becomes abysses of terrible dread for them. 120. They bring shame to themselves, and shame and dread are the wages of their deeds for what they have done and spoken falsely against the truth and creation, and because they have turned away in disdain from the truthful truth and from the laws and recommendations of creation. 121. And the unrighteous, the blasphemers and liars and deceivers, lapse into their own judgment, naked and bare, as they have been created, and leaving everything behind what had been given to them by 39. 40 creation, and leaving everything behind them what they have hoarded due to unrighteousness and falsity and through blaspheming and lying and deceit. 122. They will be alone in their hour of dread and sink down into the screaming and flaming abysses of their horror, and no intercessor will be present for them whom they imagined among their gods and idols, because lying and deceit and error teaching and unrighteousness never doth bring intercession and need and hardship. 123. Verily, only the laws and recommendations of creation and its sevenfold order let the kernel and the seed sprout of even the tiniest plant. 124. The laws and recommendations of creation and its sevenfold order alone bring forth the living from the resting, which appeareth to man in ignorance as dead, but which truthfully is transition and change unto reincarnation. 125. And the laws and recommendations of creation and its sevenfold order alone bring the living into the resting, which appeareth to the ignorant man as dead, but which truthfully is transition and change unto reincarnation. 126. And there could be wind and snow, and there could be rain, hail and storm and seasons, and there could be sunshine, light, darkness and warmth and cold, and yet there would not be becoming, life and passing away, and there would not be birth and not death, no sprouting, no flourishing and no blossoming, and there would be no fruit and no harvest, if there were not given and determining the laws and recommendations of creation and its sevenfold order, so that everything is becoming, living and passing away, all that is existing in all armies of life, which have been created by creation, the wise, the just. 127. Through its laws and recommendations creation let break forth the day for life, and the night for rest, and the sun and the stars for warmth and for light and cold and for movement, and also the time for becoming and life and passing away and for evolution, and space and the solid and water and air for the existence of all armies of life. 128. And this is the order of creation through its laws and recommendations and through the sevenfold, and praise and thanks be unto creation, which is true love and true wisdom, and which is true knowledge and true truth and endless patience and forbearance and omnipotence. 129. And the signs of creation are demonstrated up to the very last detail to all armies of life and to man, so that they are recognized and obeyed and used as assistance toward just life conduct, as man also uses the stars in heaven as assistance for the stay on the right course during the darkness of the land and on the heaving waters of the oceans and in the air above the earth and in the atmosphereless emptiness of space. 130. And to the very detail the signs of creation are demonstrated and given to all armies of life and to man, so that man shall recognize and obey the truth and be obedient to the created laws and recommendations, knowing and wise and considering and honoring. 131. And it is creation, which through its laws and recommendations and through its sevenfold order hath created you from the minutest elements of earth and from the minutest combinations of changed life from fauna and flora. 132. And the place of your creation is given unto you for tarrying and for evolution in obedience of the created laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order, so your earth is your world and on which you shall fulfill all guidelines of justice and logical consequence. 41. 133. And also all signs of creation for all human beings are demonstrated in detail, and they are given in all and everything and for all armies of life also, so that all life and man recognize and comprehend and obey these, and you also shall finally recognize, comprehend and
almost
obey
slowed me
them.
down. Alright, bumped into the wall.
134. And there are the laws and recommendations of creation and its sevenfold order, which let the rain fall down as water from the clouds, whereby growth is brought forth and also the greening, wherefrom corn sprouts and rows, but also plants of any type and shrubbery and trees of all types, fully covered with pleasantly fragrant blossom clusters, from which grow fruit in endless numbers and in manifold form and of similar or dissimilar kind. 135. And verily, if you behold the blossoms and fruits of the plants, shrubbery and trees, when they bring forth their blossoms and fruits, and how they ripen and bring new seeds, therein you truly recognize the signs of endless love of creation, and the knowledge and truth and wisdom and patience, which altogether are recognizable and anchored in the laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order of creation. 136. But all signs of creation are visible and recognizable only to those who truly are the knowing and righteous, or such who in honesty are walking on the path toward knowledge and toward righteousness and toward truth, and from whom any belief is far which is only ignorant acceptance, because only knowing truth concealeth true truth and true knowledge within itself. 137. But only few knowing ones exist and also few righteous, and many more of the ignorant and the unrighteous exist, who set themselves their rivals and gods and idols beside creation, although it is the only one, which hath created all life and all existence in its universe. 138. And the unrighteous and ignorant invent rivals next to creation, which are idols and gods and the like, and which also are a single god or a single idol. 139. And the unrighteous and the ignorant also erroneously invent sons and daughters next to creation and angels and saints, as they can do this with their god or idol or with their many gods or idols and the like. 140. But creation is holy and exalted above all lies and inventions, and all its laws and recommendations and its sevenfold order also are holy and exalted. 141. And thus, creation is creation in the highest power, and it standeth in immeasurable greatness and completion over all its creations, which are creations of creation, and which are human being and animal and plants of all kinds, and worlds and suns, galaxies, space and time, light and darkness and whatever else exists in other armies of life of any kind. 142. And creation is without gender, and it is neither male nor female, neither modest nor immodest, and neither timely nor untimely, or neither spacious nor spaceless, for creation is truly spirit and spirit power and light and truly pure spirit energy in conscious form. 143. And creation is without male and without female companion, because creation is in a neuter and gender and truthful form, so it therefore differs in everything and from any life. 144. And as creation is without gender and without male or female companion, and as it is spirit energy in purest truthful form and without tie and depending manner, how should it have sons and daughters or who call themselves such in any type or form, and how could it then be a god who is only a human being and tyrant of a coarse matter type of life? 145. Creation is creation of all things, and there is no creation in its universe except it, and it alone shall be honored and worshipped, which alone is truly creation and the protection of all armies of life and everything existing, which in addition is truly created by creation alone. 146. Verily, it, which is creation, which is your creation, and the gazes of which and being you as human beings can never reach and see and grasp, but it createth and seeth and graspeth your gaze and your life, however you may gaze and however you lead your life at all times. 147. And creation is capable of everything, for it is the immeasurable secret, and it is the incomprehensible, the all-total and the all-knowing, and it is unto man as its own existence the most obscure of all obscurity, so therefore the immeasurable secret. 148. Verily, that is creation, which is your creation, by which is being revealed through signs and manifold form the sevenfold order and the laws and recommendations of life, of evolution and of being for all armies of life. 149. Follow that which is revealed unto you by the JHWH and the prophets, you then obey the truthful laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order of creation. 150. Turn away from your gods and idols, from your human beings whom you honor as God and the sons and daughters of creation, whom you set as rivals beside it, for no creation in the universe exists except creation, which is the only one and yours. 151. Turn away from your idolaters, who lead you astray and preach to you in falsity and lying and betrayal about the self-elected or gods and idols chosen by them. 152. And verily, if creation were not true freedom and if its creatures in the will of their ways of development were not free, then itself would have willingly ordained that rivals should exist beside it and error teachings and adoration and worship, which then would be demanded by it. 153. But as this is not so and the ways of development are free unto man, so man is free and truly determining and ruling over himself, and therefore he is the Lord and Master of himself. 154. This maketh possible for him to dispute against what is just and what is unjust and to decide alone his way of justice or injustice. 155. And as man liveth in the free will of his decision, he seeketh only the advantage by least resistance, which leap in the degeneracy of easiness, like the dammed up waters of the pond which seek a leak to escape without resistance, to tear away and destroy everything as increased force. 156. And the JHWH speaks to the prophets. You have not been made the keeper of humanity, and therefore not as a watcher over them, and also not the JHWH. 157. But of your own power you have been made prophet of the instruction of truth among men, so the JHWH also is instructor for the prophet and for the generations of men. 43. 158. And speak instructing to the people. Slander not your friends and slander not your enemies and slander not the righteous and not the unrighteous, because altogether they are creatures of creation. 159. Bring forth love toward the enemies as to friends, and bring forth love toward the unrighteous as to the righteous, but be watchful and beware of falsity and lying and betrayal of the enemies and the unrighteous, so you do not suffer harm through them. 160. If an enemy or an unrighteous exists, they are human like you, so you should think and act about them and with them and for them as a human being and in love also, even if watchfulness is ordered that you do not suffer loss if secretly they are willing to bring you harm and falsity and lying and betrayal. 161. Be friendly and loving and humane to the enemies and unrighteous and give them shelter, food and drink and everything necessary, and offer them due honor and respect, because they are human beings as you also are human beings, and you all are the creatures of the same creation, as are the righteous as well as the unrighteous. 162. And slander no prisoners, should you take some, if you are invaded by enemies and you have to defend yourself. 163. Honor the prisoners and bring forth friendliness toward them, humaneness, love and respect, and give them food and drink and everything which they need. 164. And slander not the old and not the young and not the bodily disabled, and slander not the neighbor who speaks a different language or who has a different skin color, for every human being is equal value to the other, of whichever type or race he is and whether he is old or young, yellow, black or brown or white or red or blue, or whether it is a child, wife or husband, or whether he is an enemy or friend or righteous, unrighteous, knowing or ignorant one. 165. And no man is subject to another, so therefore not as bonds and not as slave and not as fighter of an army to leaders, and also not as a people to the authority and the rulers. 166. And also the wife is not subject to her husband, and also the children are not subject to their parents, neither is the husband subject to his wife, nor the hired man and worker to his master, and the parents are not subject to their children, and also human beings are not subject to gods and idols and to seducers and to priests and their sects and religions. 167. Every human being is equivalent to the neighbor, and he shall stand in his right equivalent to the neighbor, as the poor to the rich and in reversed manner, and so every human being to the other, what and who and however he may be, and it should never be measured in two different measures in any form for the right or wrong of man and the entire life forms on the whole. 168. And verily, the possessor should share his bread with the non-possessor of his free will, and the non-possessor shall not be demanding nor the possessor with his neighbor, but he always shall be just and asking as he is in need of help or a thing. 169. But it is given that everyone shall do his duty in fulfillment of the laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order of creation, so also everyone shall carry out the work assigned to him, and everyone shall be learning and evolving and obedient in the creative order, so that spongers and parasites do not and never exist, who hope for help and demand help of which they are not worthy and which cannot be given to them. 170. And speak also instructing to the human beings, speaketh the JHWH. 44. Do not allow yourself to be led astray by those on the earth, who are not obedient to the laws and recommendations of creation, For they willingly live the way of effortlessness and of unrighteousness, and they constantly bring false desires and false joys and false teachings, greed, discord, non-love and revenge and evil and all unrighteousness of the world up to death. 171. They are losers who walk aside from the way of creation, and they only follow a delusion and they lie and betray only. 172. And verily, many led others astray with evil falsities, lies and desires, and they do this in the lack of knowledge or truthfully against knowing better, but those who adhere to them and walk wrong ways become guilty also with their seducers. 173. Avoid notorious injustice as well as secret injustice also, for whether notorious or secret, both are of falsity, and whoever committeth injustice in one or the other form breaketh the law and will receive recompense accordingly. 174. And do not let yourself be led astray by tempters of faith, who set gods and idols or a god beside creation, but if you yet adhere to the tempters, you will be captured by their gods and idols or their god, and only hardly or not at all will you find your way to creation and to its truth. 175. Because gods and idols demand submission and humiliation before them, and they create violence and force, and also exploitation and enslavement through anxiety and fear, which beget restraint and breaking the will of independent and self-deciding thinking and acting. 176. As you therefore obey the seducers, you set gods and idols beside creation, and you become unfree and full of anxiety and fear, and you are obedient to the seducers and their gods and idols like beaten dogs to their masters in doggish humility. 177. For the ways of the unrighteous are covered with all evils of the world, and where seducers and gods and idols exist, their anxiety and fear and terror of punishment ruleth, which shall gain validity if the seducers, gods and idols are not wooed to. 178. And the seducers, the unrighteous, the gods and idols demand cruel punishment for ways of thinking and actions against their falsity and their false laws and recommendations, and thereby the believers and adherents are being pressed into anxiety and fear and terror, so they do not become brave to oppose all falsities and the false powers which only demand punishment and death. 179. The way to knowledge and to truth and thought is being denied them, and this is being done through anxiety and fear, by which they are kept in fetters and unfree by the seducers and gods and idols, who threaten with torturous and deadly judgment and with hellish damnation if their false requirements and power demands are not fulfilled. 180. And in the background the believers of the seducers and gods and idols are aware of their anxiety and fear, but the threats of the hellish judgments and torments do not allow them to become free. 181. And those who are threatening are the seducers and their gods and idols and the sects and religions and their false laws and recommendations, and they are also the priests of the believers, and those who are threatening are also the power greedy, the prophet seekers and leaders of war armies, and they also are the authorities of the nation, who rule, mislead, harass and murder in untruthful manner and according to laws and recommendations of man, and who do not rule and lead the people in the sense of spirit and truthful freedom, and not according to the laws and recommendations of creation. 182. Verily, as a dead one is not able to walk among the truly living, so also can an unrighteous one not obtain justice before he has not changed himself to be righteous, as also the dead one still has to be reborn before it can be possible for him to walk among the living. 183. So a human being is able to be free only if he walks in the radiating light of life and of truth, but only such a human being will be unfree and imprisoned, who stumbleth and falleth in the prison of the blackest darkness. 184. And those who stumble and fall in blackest darkness, they fancy themselves to devise intrigues against the righteous and against creation, yet they only devise intrigues against themselves, only they do not notice, for they are dumb and blind, faint-hearted and weak and willingless toward themselves. 185. Verily, they are the losers and they bring to themselves degradation and punishment of their own power. 186. They do not want to live unto the truth of creation, which itself neither demands punishment nor imparteth punishment, so man continuously punisheth himself for unrighteous doings and actions, as also the rabbit is caught and killed by the eagle, if it disregardeth the threatening shadow of the down-diving eagle and fleeth not into the protecting hole. 187. And as the eagle catcheth and killeth the rabbit, reckless of its own power, so man draweth unto himself judgment and punishment of his own power, if he burdens himself with recklessness and the will toward wrong thinking and actions. 188. Therefore, whoever conducteth himself justly and leadeth the creation righteous life, Unto him his chest widens and the joy and the love, the knowledge, the truth and the wisdom, and he doeth not let himself be beaten by the enemy, for he is watchful and cautious. 189. But whoever conducteth himself unjustly and letteth the creation opposing life, he narroweth his chest and his joy will be small, and also his love, his knowledge and the truth and wisdom. 190. That is the way of truth and the way of creation, which is the truthful and the right, and whoever walketh on it liveth obedient unto the laws and recommendations of creation. 191. Verily, the most different levels for all human beings exist, depending on their doings, but everything is regulated in the laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order of creation, so everyone will be rewarded according to his level and according to his doings. 192. And it is given for all times that everyone is rewarded according to his level and according to his doings, in righteousness and in impartiality, so for all times everyone receiveth his reward, as is due him and as he is measured according to his life's conduct and according to his deeds, and according to his thinking and actions.
Where did he come from?
193. And no one can thwart or reject. Which is due him according to his level, for creative justice knoweth no discord and neither favoritism nor prejudice. 194. Man therefore always should act according to his best ability and also act in fulfillment of the laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order of creation according to his best knowing and ability, so therefore he doth right and always giveth the best according to his understanding and ability, and as he acteth and liveth truthfully and is not unjust. 195. And many misled ones, ignorant and unrighteous exist, who believe they can present sacrifices and prayers to their seducers and gods and idols, and that thereby they are freed from their guilt of idol. 45. 46 Worship. 196. But verily, their sacrifices and prayers are directed to gods and idols and therefore not designated to creation. 197. And whoever unknowingly presents sacrifices and prayers to gods and idols and who believeth that thereby he reacteth unto creation, he is no less and no more than one of the other unrighteous, for he serveth idols and gods and slandereth the truth and creation. 198. And the unrighteous will receive their own verdict and their self-appointed judgment and their self-elected punishment also. 199. And their judgment and their verdict and their punishment will not be from creation and not from its laws and recommendations, but they will be elected by the strength and power of man himself, measured according to the weight of the act of the trespass and the debt. 200. For man is master of himself, so he determineth his life and judgeth of his own power and responsibility about it, as he also imposeth punishment and judgment upon himself or averteth from himself. 201. And so speaketh the JHWH. Generations of men, act according to your ability and according to your understanding and your common sense, and find which your final reward will be for the life which you lead. 202. But see, to the righteous will be given a good reward, but the unrighteous will not fare well. 203. You sacrifice fruits and fruit of the field and animals and incense to your gods and idols, and you sacrifice blood and even human beings and things of your riches, and you combine your sacrifices with blabbering prayers and through them you hope for help, mercy and grace from your gods and idols. 204. But no God at any time will impart to you hearing, help, mercy or grace, and so also an idol or other in same or similar form will not do, because gods are tyrants who only strive for profit and power, and idols are dead cult demons without any strength and power, which are used by priests and the like for selfish and profit-seeking purposes. 205. Therefore you sacrifice your food and your animals and your riches without sense and without reasonable possibility of a hope, and therewith you only follow a superstitious code, whereby you even murder and destroy human life and other life. 206. See, man of earth, as you live in righteousness and truth, you adore only creation, and therefore you only pray to creation which is spirit form and also as a minute part within yourself, so you also can pray to the part of creation spirit within and to yourself. 207. And in no wise whatsoever is creation similar in anything to the gods and idols, so it also never ordained laws and recommendations for cultish actions for itself, and therefore were never created by its laws and recommendations for the offering of sacrifices to it in any form. 208. creation is incorruptible and not caught in a partisan way, and it is without demands toward its creations, as it is only creation and fulfillment of life and of the laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order. 209. Therefore is given that it is not demanding in any form and therefore not in need of any gifts and sacrifices to it by its creations. 210. Creation therefore is not in need of any sacrificial offerings, which also would not be according to 47 any order of it, but which are only destruction of life, food and goods and senselessness and squandering by cultish degenerations of man, and which are only serving as false testimony and false honesty of man for the purpose of humble submission and anxiety and fear, so therefore no sacrifice offerings should be offered in any manner. 211. Therefore the sacrificial offering represents an offense against the laws and recommendations and against the sevenfold order of creation, which does not demand or alloweth destruction or murdering or squandering of any life or of goods or food in whichever form. 212. And as creation is neutral in balance and in love, and as it is incorruptible and not intimidated and without demand in any form toward all life and its creations, so it only established directions and laws and recommendations and the sevenfold order, which contain all guidelines and directions for righteous life conduct for every life, which decideth in free will about its own way of life. 213. And as this is so, also not a tittle of a law or recommendation of creation is established which would demand of any life form, and therefore also not a man, that adoration and worship or gifts and sacrifices in any form should be offered to it, for creation is not demanding of anything, so therefore not in good or evil form. 214. But it is left to man's option, and it also appertaineth to him that he present reverence and respect and honoring unto creation, as also appertains to every other life. 215. And it leaveth the free will of man to conduct appeals and prayers and reverence toward creation, as he confronteth the power of true life and communication and also the part of creation spirit within himself, which through this type of prayers is being addressed and molded in persuasive form and in true knowledge, in love, wisdom and truth. 216. From such prayer, therefore, resulteth a better feeling and security on the inside of man, so he sheltereth hope and evolveth, that due to the strength gained by addressing the part of spirit in man through prayer, unconsciously to man himself, it unfolds his powers and spends evolutionary power and impulses, whereby the wishes and hopes of man are being fulfilled. 217. Therefore, if a prayer is directed to the creation power or the spirit part in man or to the material consciousness and the material subconscious itself, it may stimulate effective powers in man himself and bring these into operation. 218. Whether a prayer is directed to creation or to the material consciousness forms themselves, the part creation spirit in man is thereby stimulated in direct manner, which becomes effective through good hope and the knowledge of man that spirit truly imparts help through its power. 219. Therefore a prayer is of equal value, whether it is directed to creation or to the material consciousness forms or to the spirit part of man, which is a minute part of creation itself, and he therefore also hath at his disposal the power of the spirit energy of creation, which is neutral in all things and also balanced, and which never can be altered or changed into another form, neither the spirit energy of creation itself, nor the spirit part in man. 220. Therefore it is said that creation is in no form demanding or commanding, that therefore it must 48 be prayed to, because adoration of the creation spirit as a whole or the spirit part within man, which is part of the entire creation, lies alone in the will and consideration of man, as therefore also in his common sense and in his understanding, which should know that prayers are a good and effective medium of help for man and for his evolution, and also for hope, wish fulfillment, safety and security. 221. Truly, namely, prayers give man the security of knowledge and of truth, so he walks in real truth and conducts his prayers in true manner. 222. Prayers of adoration to creation, to the material consciousness forms and to the spirit within man are not and never to be conducted in a manner of humility or worry or anxiety and fear, for if such is done erroneously, the moral of man sinketh and also the security and the trust about the power of the spirit energy. 223. Neither creation nor the spirit part in man demand humility, submission or worry and anxiety and fear, for man shall be free in every way, so he does not need to worry or to fear. 224. And if adoration of creation taketh place, to the material consciousness forms or to the spirit within man, then adoration ought not to be in the way that homage is paid, imploration or glorification, but there shall only be praise and reverence and respect, devotion and petitioning in true manner. 225. And as you conduct your prayer, you shall not babble like the believers of sects and religions and like the heathen and other god-servants and idolaters, who conduct adoration and humility with prayers which are endless repetitions and refer to names of idols and gods in absurd and logically incorrect manner. 226. But if you conduct your prayers as the righteous and knowing ones, then they shall be clear and meaningful and logical in word and in truth. 227. And as you pray, conduct your prayer according to free will and according to free mind, so you yourself create words for sensible and logical prayers, which are purpose-determined in a general way and determined for evolution and for righteous life conduct. 228. Take care in your prayers that you pray in devotion, which is righteous and truthful prayer in knowledge and love, so that you shall select the correct words and the correct form of prayer offering. 229. And when you pray, you shall pay attention that you pray in honesty and not like the hypocrites, those who are the unrighteous, and who like to stand and pray at the corners of houses and in the streets and alleys, so therewith they want to shine before their fellow men in selfishness and esteem, and so therewith they win new followers and swindle and profit. 200. Of creation, which is the omnipotence of creation spirit and of the material consciousness forms in man. 231. And in prayer you shall not be selfish and not inconsiderate and not submissive like the ignorant, the hypocrites and unrighteous, who imagine that thereby they would be listened to by their false gods and idols, if they speak many words nonsensically and implore them in humility or command. 232. But verily, creation spirit doth not need many words and also not the spirit and the material consciousness forms within man. But the knowledge is needed that spirit is powerful and great and infinite in its force, through which it truly is able to move mountains from one place to another place. 233. But if you dost not understand to pray directly to the omnipotence of spirit, be content with a matter by which you can prepare and concentrate yourself, so in concentration you may find the way for your thoughts to the omnipotence of spirit. 234. But understand the matter of a helping medium in the correct way, for truly it is only a tool of help to concentration, that of itself it does not carry any power and also is not a medium between you and the omnipotence of spirit, for truly the assisting tool always remaineth an assisting tool. 235. Therefore, never be like the priests of cults and sects and religions, and never be like the unrighteous, the hypocrites, the unwise and ignorant and selfish ones, who raise assisting media to cult objects and to relics and to adore their assisting media in the false belief that hides within them. 236. Be knowing therefore, that even in the use of assisting media and sacred things the omnipotence of spirit always liveth within yourself, as it is also in creation itself which itself is spirit, and which also liveth in everything that is created by creation. 237. Therefore conduct your prayers as the knowing and righteous, and therefore you shall pray in logical consequence in your own prayers or in prayers of general value and therefore. 238. My spirit, thou which art omnipotent. 239. Hallowed be thy name. 240. Thy kingdom reveal itself and incarnate within me. 241. Thy power unfold within me and be effective in the earthly and in the spiritual realm in balanced and evolving manner. 242. Give me today my daily bread, which I need in the earthly and spiritual realm. 243. And let me recognize and remove my errors, and also let me recognize and acquire the truth and the love and the wisdom and the knowledge. 244. Fill me with power against temptation and confusion, and also give me power, so that I deliver myself from error. 245. I live according to thy laws and according to thy recommendations, for thine is the kingdom of spirit and of life, and the power and the knowledge, and the truth and wisdom and love and all timeliness. So be it. Amen. 246. And when you conduct your prayers to the spirit of creation or to the part creation spirit or to the material consciousness forms within yourself, you pray only to a power, for the creation spirit is as much in creation itself as also in all creations of creation, as also within man. 247. And when you conduct prayers to the creation spirit itself or to the spirit within you or to the material consciousness forms within you, then will be given unto you that which you have need of and for which you pray. But it is suggested that you are truthful in prayer and in knowledge about it. You then will receive. 248. But if you are not the knowledgeable ones, but believe the erroneous teachings that the power and the spirit are not residing within yourself, and that creation truly is not and is not residing in everything living and of the same type as the part creation spirit form within man himself, you then are without knowledge and falsely pander to gods and idols or to another creation opposing belief. Servitude of 49. 50. Another form, so you live in spirit in effectual poverty and in ignorant inadequacy. 249. But to those acting and living in false belief, it is also given that now and then they receive what they in erroneous belief beg for and obtain by entreaty from purposes strange to assisting media, relics and sacred things and from gods and idols, but thereby they only receive due to stubborn and erroneous belief, and therefore in law opposing form of forced suggestion, and therefore without knowledge about the real truth. 250. Verily, blessed are only those who offer their life to truthful truth and to truthful knowledge, for they alone receive in honesty and in fulfillment of the laws and recommendations of creation and in truthful love and in wisdom. 251. Creation is honesty and fulfillment, and in conformity to it all life is formed, so man also who only has to fulfill in his own freedom and honesty the talents slumbering within him, which are given by the laws and recommendations of creation. 252. Therefore man in his innermost part is like creation, namely in spirit, and he may make himself also like his spirit on the outer part, so he may also fulfill the laws and recommendations of creation outwardly. Canon 21:1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 2. Praise be unto creation, which is equality. 3. And the JHWH speaketh. Teach man the equality of wages of creation, and thus speaketh the prophet. 4. Creation never measureth with two different measures, and also not the valuing of wages for all things. 5. Therefore is given that man also never shall use two different measures for a wage in whichever thing this may be. 6. The wages of creation for man are uniform, if man obeys the laws and recommendations of creation in any manner of correctness, and therefore, whether in lesser measure or in better measure, if the correctness and the honest best of understanding and ability of man is only given. 7. And it is stated that one man is more evolved than his neighbor, as he also possesses a greater understanding and ability and knowledge to obey the laws and recommendations of creation, while the other one is less evolved, as also his understanding and ability and knowledge are rated as less. 8. But truly, the more knowledgeable, more understanding and more able strives the same as the less knowledgeable, understanding and able and honest, truthful and law-abiding and, therefore, in correct manner, each according to the level of their knowledge and understanding and ability, therefore they give their best. 9. And if the best is given in this manner, then the equality of effort is given, and thereby also given is the paying of equal wages by creation, so one is not being paid better and the other worse for the same effort, even if the performance is different in the measure of more or less produced. 10. And as creation giveth equality and justice in the paying of wages for equal effort, so man also shall act in equal manner. 11. And as creation thus doeth not differentiate in the performance for paying of wages, but only differentiates in the effort, so shall man act in like manner. 12. And with man it happens that one due to work stands in wages with another, so one works for another or one for many or for all, but also all or many for one. 13. But as human beings differ in their evolution, in their body, in their feeling, in their learning and in their thinking and acting, so they also differ in their performances in the accomplishment of work, even if they give their best efforts. 14. But best efforts, so say the laws and recommendations of creation, shall be paid in just equality, so one does not receive higher wages than the other for his best efforts. 15. This saith clearly that the daily laborer without special knowledge shall receive equal wages as the king or emperor, if both give their best efforts toward the accomplishment of the work. 16. Therefore wages shall not be paid in diversity due to different activity and work, for truthfully every work is worth its wages, which is measured according to effort and not according to performance. 17. Therefore, the carrier of burdens shall not receive higher wages than the keeper of goats, and the emperor shall not receive more than the daily laborer, and thus a different leader of the nation also shall not receive more than the farmer or house builder, and the one skilled in medicine shall not receive more than the shoemaker, if all bring and give their best effort, even if the performance is unequal. 18. If therefore a wage of a half ounce of silver is paid for the performing of 10 hours of work for the best effort of a goatkeeper, the same wage shall be valid for the best work effort of the emperor or the daily laborer or the national leader or shoemaker or anyone else, who accomplishes an activity or work with best effort during 10 hours. 19. This law is equally valid for those who are wealthy in material riches. As to them also the payment of wages shall not be higher than for those who are not wealthy in material riches and who stand in employment with the wealthy. 20. And this law shall be valid for all human beings uniformly, as also for the instructors of truth, for the prophets and spirit leaders, for the supporters of nations and the cultivators of the muses, and also for all who accomplish a work and give their best effort. 21. Creation is equality in justice, and therefore man shall also be so. Thus in the paying of wages for all work is also in it the daily laborer or goatkeeper or shoemaker in esteem, in honor, in respect and in all rights and duties are equal to the king or emperor, as this also shall be for all human beings without difference, whether one is brown or white or red, yellow, black or blue in skin color, or whether he is poor or rich or a knowing one or ignorant, and also whether the one is of good schooling or bad schooling or whatever. Canon 22:1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 51. 52:2. Praise be unto creation, which is correctness. 3. Speak instructively unto the human beings, saith the JHWH to the prophet, and inform them of the application of just discernment, and so the prophet speaketh. 4. Creation is without compulsion and pressure in anything toward its creatures, therefore these manage freely according to their own estimation and in all matters. 5. And thus as man is free also and not forced and not pressured by creation in anything, so he standeth in responsibility unto himself in all matters of his thinking and acting. 6. Thus thereby is said that creation judgeth not over man, no matter what his thinking and acting is. 7. Creation only formeth an opinion of every matter, without casting a judgment or to demand punishment, whichever may occur. 8. Judgment therefore is established by violence and force, and the judgment is connected with punishment. 9. But an opinion only establisheth the correctness of a matter, according to which a measure can take place, which letteth thereto that incurred damage or committed errors can be removed. 10. And therefore the measure has to be measured according to the laws and recommendations of creation, so that the measure never shall be of the kind that a life form will be harmed in any way by it, or that it lose its bodily, thinking or spiritual freedom partially or in total. 11. Therefore no human being and no other life form shall be disadvantaged by judgment or be enjoined with punishments, if these infringe partially or in total upon the freedom of the body, the thinking or the spirit. 12. Verdict means judgment by violence and force, which is creation foreign in all parts, so forming an opinion only is of correctness, which elucidateth the correctness of a matter. 13. And if measures have to be taken with a human being by an opinion, they should be creation concordant and therefore so that the human being suffereth no harm whatsoever in body and in thinking and in spirit or in any other way. 14. If errors, harm or even guilt become evident by human beings, who live contrary to the laws and the recommendations against a given order, and if through misdeed they become subject to an opinion, then by an opinion, justice is to be carried out in correctness. 15. But if an opinion is to be carried out in justice of correctness, then measures are to be taken in the same justice of correctness. 16. And as man may not be harmed by measures of an opinion in his freedom of body, of thinking and of spirit, the only measure to be undertaken in a criminal offense, as in murder of life, dictatorial power conduct, criminal acts, and everything which is of the same unworthiness, is that the fallible shall be separated from the human community for life. 17. And places of fulfillment for the carrying out of such measures shall be established, which are far away from human settlements, and which are without jail and without hardship, without violence and without force by guards and overseers and executor. 18. For measure fulfillment the most remote places shall be selected like islands and planets, from where an escape of the fallible is not possible, but where all possibilities of the teachings and of bodily, mental and spiritual freedom are provided for them. 53:19. and at the places of measure fulfillment everything and essential tools shall be provided to the fallible, which are necessary that they can in evolving manner engage themselves in all teachings and in righteous life conduct, so they also are equipped for all activities which are essential to the cultivation and production of food and shelters and remedies and everything else essential to life at the place of measure fulfillment. 20. And therefore with such kind of measure fulfillment it has to be considered that the sexes of male and female are separated, so a place of measure fulfillment shall be chosen for one sex only, and another place of measure fulfillment for the other sex only. 21. And if there are women, who have to be taken to remote places of measure fulfillment, they shall first be questioned about new life in their body, and therefore in every case they should only be brought to the place of measure fulfillment 9 months after the measure pronouncement so that no offspring is being born at the places of measure fulfillment. 22. The offspring of the fallible shall be born in the innocent community of human beings, and thus they shall be arranged into the rearing and life there, but in the family circle of the fallible or, if it deems necessary, into the keeping of the people or with foster parents or the substitute. 23. If measures have to be taken which do not concern a form of crime but are of lesser offense as the theft of possessions in small measure and which do not exceed the value of 70 lot of silver, or offenses of any other type and form which are not directed against body and life and do not exceed a loss value of 70 lot of silver, the measure by opinion shall be in the first case that a warning will be given, but in the second case and in repetition of the same or other offense, the measure of separation from the human community for 7 years at remote places of measure fulfillment shall occur and in the same manner as the other fallible, however at a special place and not at the same place with the fallible, so that a return to the human community after 7 years can be made possible, where the returning ones then may or may not adapt to the given order, and at a third offense they have to be judged as fallible and have to be brought to the measure fulfillment places of the fallible for life. 24. But an opinion shall not be formed in injustice and not as a verdict. Also opinions shall not be formed by judges who pronounce verdicts, which is against the laws and recommendations of creation. 25. The opinion formers shall be human beings of the people who are righteous and fulfilling the laws and recommendations of creation, and for every opinion they shall be chosen by lot and newly from case to case. 26. And they shall also be just and unprejudiced and not be connected to those about whom an opinion is to be formed, and they shall form an opinion according to laws and recommendations, and therefore not judging and condemning, and they shall be free of partiality. 27. And thus in every case you shalt only form an opinion in just correctness, and you shalt never judge or pronounce a verdict. 28. Therefore it saith, Judge not so that someday you yourself art not judged, and that you do not heap guilt upon yourself. 29. But if you transgressest against the laws and recommendations of creation, and if you judge therefore, and with whichever judgment you judge, so will you yourself be judged sometime by your own. 54 Power. 30. And consider, with whichever measure you measure, so will you be measured again, as by yourself as also by the creation guidelines and by your neighbor. 31. Form an opinion about everything and every matter according to the logic of the laws of nature which are from creation, and which alone have their truth and their validity. 32. Therefore you shalt not see the splinter in your neighbor's eye and thereby not become aware of the beam in your own eye. 33. And therefore you shalt not trouble yourself to pull the splinter from the eye of your neighbor, while the beam in your own eye causeth you blindness, so you dost not take hold of the splinter in your neighbor but cuttest out his eye. 34. But if you only seest the splinter in the eye of your neighbor and disregardest the beam in your own eye, you are only a hypocrite. Therefore remove first the beam from your own eye and heal the pain, and only then see to it that you removest the splinter from the eye of your neighbor without hurting him. 35. Therefore this saith, that first you shalt acquire the regarding of the laws and recommendations of creation, and thus the laws of nature and its logic, before you castest an opinion on anything, that through the knowledge of truth you thus dost not condemn and judge and dost not want to see the faults in your neighbor. 36. First learn to recognize and remove your own faults by the laws and recommendations of nature and of creation, so you only then recognizest the faults of your neighbor in truthful manner and can teach him how he has to remove his faults by himself. 37. Thus you shalt be watchful in honesty and righteousness, and you also shalt guard the freedom and the knowledge and also the love and the wisdom for yourself and also for your neighbor, that you givest not to dogs what is holy, which in eagerness devour everything indiscriminately if they take a fancy for it. 38. but truth and love, logic, freedom, knowledge and wisdom, and also righteousness and obedience of the laws and recommendations of creation are best treasures of immeasurableness, and to you therefore of equal value to pearls. And you shall not throw your pearls before swine, that they do not trample them underfoot, and so they do not turn against you and tear you apart. 39. Thus therewith is said, that you dost not throw your spiritual possession and your possession of consciousness into the dirt and not waste it on the unworthy, for they do not thank you for it and tear you apart, because their understanding is small and the power of their will is weak. 40. And therefore, as you form an opinion about a matter, see the truth, do not be of false hope and false feelings therein, but form an opinion in justice of correctness and therefore in the right measure of measures, that you art not trampled down and torn apart by the unrighteous fallible and by the other unrighteous, if you seekest false opinions and false measures. 41. Thus do not judge so that you art not judged, but form opinions in righteousness of correctness, so you are righteous ones and that it be well with you. 42. Regard the correctness of the laws and recommendations of nature and those of creation, and as you live unto them you live righteously and in correctness. 43. If facts are given then by the guilty or fallible, which prove that a deed or action of trespass against the laws and recommendations. 55 And against the given order hath occurred in confusion of the senses and diseased form, then the fallible or guilty act to be brought to healing places of diseases for such a time until they are healed, so that they then are returned to the community of human beings and lead their life under guardianship. 44. If deeds or actions have been committed by the guilty or fallible in injury of the senses by means, which have been ensued due to fermentation or brewing, pressing out, scratching off or refining of fruits and grain and plants of all types, which are a means of intoxication and of anesthesia, then no forbearance is to be practiced for the guilty and fallible, for they already make themselves guilty and fallible thereby that they succumb to the indulgence of substances of intoxication and of anesthesia, which hem the evolution of consciousness and of spirit, which is destruction against body and life and therefore transgressing against the laws and recommendations of creation. 45. Therefore it is said, as is given by the laws and recommendations of creation, that the most serious crimes are deeds and actions and are measure ensuing, which are committed against body and life and against possessions of greater values, as against the neighbor as it also refers to one's own person. 46. Therefore the same is valid for the indulgence of substances of intoxication and anesthesia, if such are given to a neighbor or if they are being used by one's own person, without these being substances for the preservation or regaining of health or any other substance designated for a healing process. 47. If a deed or action in fallible manner is committed in carelessness, the measure shall be 7 years at the place of measure fulfillment. 48. If a deed or action in fallible manner is committed by reasons of degenerated emotion, the measure shall be the place of measure fulfillment for the lifetime. 49. If a deed or action in fallible manner is committed in carelessness or on purpose or for fun, then the measure shall be the place of measure fulfillment for the lifetime. 50. And every deed or action is fallible which injures the free life conduct and the evolution of a neighbor, so the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be for the lifetime. 51. Every killing is fallible and murder of unborn life which is older than 21 days, so the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be for the lifetime. 52. And every wickedness committed against any life and body is fallible, against a human being, the animals of all types and against nature also, so the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be for the lifetime. 53. But whoever causeth pollution or destruction in any way whatsoever and for body or life, to the air breathed, to the waters, to the sky, to the earth, to any animals or to a human being, but also to the natural treasures of the planet or the trees and plants, or to feelings and thoughts and to all which exists, to them the measure at the place of measure fulfillment shall be given for the lifetime. 54. And the measures for the guilty and fallible and for their helpers and accomplices are to be uniform without difference, for the measure of crime of fallibility is the same, whether a deed or action of the offense is committed directly or indirectly and by one human being or by several. 55. And you also shall determine measures depending upon the opinion forming of a matter, yet there shall truly be justice and correctness and without relationship, if the just determination is worked out. 56. Opinion forming in justice of correctness is the measure of the 56 entirety of all examination, and it only is of correctness, so a verdict shall never be cast. which only embodies violence and force, and which at the beginning was invented by man as vengeance practice. 57. Thus a verdict truthfully is vengeance demand and vengeance practice, which splits the unit of balance, so that through a verdict, which is vengeance, part of the rights of the laws and recommendations of creation are taken from man. 58. It is justice and correctness only, if a matter through opinion forming reveals the truthful values, to which for every matter uniformly equal measures without difference are to be ordered. 59. And opinion forming in justice of correctness is valid equally and without difference for human beings and for all life. 60. And if opinion forming of a matter about a human being ensues, wherefrom measures result and are essential, then all measures are uniformly decisive and without difference for all human beings. 61. The measures to be taken, resulting from opinion forming, are valid in equal measure and without difference for all human beings, as for the one without possessions as also for the one owning possessions, and as well for the goat keeper and the king, for the water bearer and for the instructor, and as well for all people of all colors and activities, for the young and for the old and for every rank. 62. If man formeth a false opinion due to intimidation or due to partiality or greed or force or violence, he becomes guilty and shall be taken as measure to the measure fulfillment places for life. 63. And thus the one also shall be ordered into the measure as the measure fulfillment places for life, who speaks false testimony, if therefrom resulteth a false opinion forming or any other damage in possessions or to nature or to body and life. 64. The breaking also of a contract of any type is debt incurring. A contract break between nations is also a contract break in marriage between husband and wife, and also any contract break between one or more parties of which type they ever may be, so the measure at the measure fulfillment place shall be for life. 65. And as an indebtedness is incurred in a contract break, then indebtedness also is incurred in the break of trust and the break of promise, so the measure at the measure fulfillment place shall be for life. 66. If there is parasitism or totemism, robbery or extortion or non-values of similar type, the measure of the measure fulfillment place shall be for life. 67. And if falsity, greed or envy, vice, hatred or jealousy or unworthiness of other emotional types occur, as also wrong talk against the neighbor, evil bothering of the neighbor, fist fights to carry out punishment of self-justice or similar, the matter is of fallibility and to be handled as such through the three measures determined therefore. But if damage is caused to body or life or to possessions, the measure of lifetime measure fulfillment place is to be given. 68. Self-defense proven by opinion forming is in every case free from measure taken, if a human being acts in defense of his own or the neighbor's life, or to protect his or his neighbor's body or his neighbor's possessions, and if he damages an attacking or robbing being in body or life or kills him, he is free of indebtedness, if self-defense is truthfully given. 69. Self-defense in every case is given only, if one's own or the neighbor's body and life and 57 possessions are being protected thereby, when defensive force is being used during body endangering and life endangering oppressive violence of the attacker. 70. Anything is not and never considered self-defense without direct body endangering or life endangering attack, in which one's own or a neighbor's body or life would be endangered. Canon 23:1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 2. Praise thee unto creation, which is cognizance. 3. Speak instructing to the human beings, saith the JHWH to the prophet, that everything is aligned in the manner as it is being impressed by the life conduct of man. 4. It is being taught that everything, whichever you want and what shall be done unto you, you yourself shall give the same and do the same, for that is the law in application and result, and so is the speech of the prophet and the speech of the JHWH. 5. As you want good and if kindness shall be given unto you, then do good and give kindness, but therefore you have to enter through the narrow gate of righteousness. 6. Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the path is narrow, which leadeth to the fall into the abyss and into destruction, and many are those who walk thereon into ruin. 7. Therefore the gate is narrow and the path small, which leadeth unto life and knowledge, unto truth and unto wisdom and unto love, and those are few only who find it. 8. And error teachers exist among you, and you shall be cautious of those who are false prophets and scribes, sect masters and religion representatives, and also all kinds of other scum, which cometh in lamb's clothing to you, while within them they are tearing wolves and always willing to tear you apart, but whereby they preach for you to have humility before holy artifacts and before gods and deities and before idols and error teachings. 9. And the mendacious error teachings of the deceivers and seducers are slippery and lustful, and therefore they are sweet and enticing and infatuating and promising all things of pleasure, of fortune and of splendor, of peace and of wealth and of eternal life. 10. But these are only the words of the false prophets and deceivers and liars, who speak and solicit so and who smear stolen honey around your mouth with insinuating words and promises. 11. The real truth truthfully is of a different type, and the truthful prophets really are also of a different type, therefore also the truthful leaders of spirit and the benefactors and the righteous as well. 12. And the words of truth are hard and striking the unrighteous ones, and so are the truthful prophets since times of old, and so is the last prophet of the line also who is given at the present time. 13. Therefore is said that the word of truth is hard, which is also brought in hard expression and in hard speaking by the prophet, so the words of truth are not insinuating, sweet, promising or enticing and slippery, but upsetting and striking, and they place everything at the whipping post in recognizable nakedness, which is according to real truth. 58:14. Do not seek therefore your well-being with those who are false prophets and sect leaders and the like, and who smear stolen honey around your mouth, but seek your well-being with the truthful leaders and with the real prophets, who tell you the truth in striking hard words and who demand effort from you and hard obedience of the laws and recommendations of creation. 15. Beware of the tearing wolves in sheep's clothing, for they intend to tear you, wherefore you should recognize them by the fruit they offer unto you. Therefore whether the fruit is sweet and enticing, or whether it is hard and upsetting and striking and nourishing. 16. By their fruit shall you recognize them, so you become knowledgeable that you cannot harvest grapes from thorn bushes and also no figs from the thistles. 17. Thus you shall become knowledgeable that you shall plant good trees and keep them in good health, if you want to harvest good fruit. 18. But as you plant and care for a healthy and good tree, you have toil and much hard labor, but as the tree hath reached its age it bringeth you good fruit. 19. Therefore you shall be watchful and recognize the tree by its fruit, for a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a rotten tree cannot bear good fruit. 20. Be aware and recognize the tree which only beareth good fruit through loving care and hard work, but the one beareth diseased fruit which did not receive loving care and for which hath not been worked hard. 21. Thus you shall recognize the trees by their fruit, and also the bringers of truthful or of false teachings, as the prophets also of falsity or righteousness. 22. And whoever of you doeth so is like a wise man who built his house upon the rock, and when the torrential rain fell and the waters came and winds blew and pushed against the firm house, it still did not fall and stood fast against wind, water and harm, for it was built upon the rock and anchored within it. 23. Yet whoever of you doeth not so is like a foolish man who built his house upon sand, and when the torrential rain fell and the waters came and the wind which pushed against his house, it crashed down and did a great fall and was washed away because it was built on sand, on loose ground. 24. Therefore do like the wise man, who heareth and seeth and listeneth and thinketh and feeleth, yet he doeth not speak about it and calleth nothing his own before he hath considered and explored all things within himself, so he hath become resolved in finding the truth, which he showeth to the seeking as advice thereafter. 25. And the time of the tree during growth is slow and difficult and having to withstand storm and rain and snow and sun and wind, before it reaketh age and beareth blossom clusters from which grow up fruit. 26. Thereby is said also that the path of man is long and difficult in his growth of learning the truth and in enduring of battles against untruth and hostility, when he hath found the narrow gate and the narrow path unto life. 27. And the goal of life is not reached in hours or days or weeks or months, when the gate and the path of life are found, for the becoming of the real recognition and of the first success lasteth a long time which is measured in years. 28. Thus the gate and the path of life and the truthful truth must first be found. One only then beginneth the becoming unto real recognition and of the first success, before the time of enjoyment of truthful life follows, which is like the good fruit of the tree when they grow and ripen. Canon 24:1. In the name of creation, the wise, the just. 2. Praise thee unto creation, which is guidance. 3. And the JHWH speaketh thus to the prophet. The instructive unto man about the truth, that creation is guidance, thus the prophet also teacheth and speaketh. 4. It is creation, which hath given you all ways of guidance in all things, which in balanced obedience lead to the existence of life, and to life in truthful manner according to the laws and recommendations of creation, with everything essential for the evolution of the spiritual and the material realm. 5. so creation is wise guidance and hath given guidelines for everything that occurreth in life. 6. And man only has to follow the guidance of creation, so he flourisheth and liveth and evolveth and balanceth unto his well-being. 7. Creation alone hath created heaven and earth, and the proof therefore has been given you in everything that exists, and man may try to sprout only one single kernel without the guidance of creation, and verily he will not succeed. 8. Creation letteth all things in just ways and in love, wisdom, knowledge, and truth and balance, so not one single creature suffers harm in any way through creation itself or through its laws and recommendations and through its sevenfold order. 9. Therefore it also doth not abuse the unrighteous and the other creation slanderers and God's servants and idolaters, but it alloweth them the free will of decision, so they may return unpunished at any time to the path of balance and to the truthful fulfillment of the laws and recommendations of creation. 10. And therefore man shall not slander the unrighteous and other creation slanderers, but be guidance and instruction unto them in love, knowledge, truth and wisdom, so the fallible find the way to the justice of life unto creation. 11. And thus the guidance shall not be in violence and force, and also not by verdict pronouncement and verdict fulfillment, as is given, that also a punishment shall never be passed and executed by a verdict, whereby the verdict executor makes himself guilty as do the verdict producers also. 12. If a creature, due to a verdict, is placed into fetters or is hurt in body or robbed of his life, the executors as also the verdict producers and the verdict representatives and verdict advocates become guilty thereby. 13. And creation doth not lead any life form by verdicts and punishment and verdict execution, therefore man shall do like it. 14. The guidance of creation is justice and love, and man has to be likewise, thus guiding and just. 2. And without vengeance and similar, which is the generative in comparison to creation. 15. And verily, the guidance of creation is perfect in all things, as also truth is perfect and unchangeable as it is given by the JHWH and the prophet in truth and love and justice, and which is never changeable by lying, deceit and falsification, for the guidance of creation doth not allow this, because it is the wise and just and omniscient one. 16. Thus is also determined in the guidance of creation that everything shall serve man as food which flourishes as edible for him, so everything in plants, fruits and animals of the air, of the waters and of the earth. 17. And what reason should man have not to eat edibles, if the edible is given to him by nature, for he is created differently from the plant world and from all animals, namely in that he is a consumer of all things which flourish as plants, fruits and animals. 18. Thus man is omnivorous and therefore different from all plants and from all animals with exceptions to a minor degree. 19. But wherever exceptions exist among animals which also are omnivorous, these animals are to be considered as unclean as food for man in the sense that danger exists in butchered meat, if it is not fresh anymore or not dried, because this is quickly infested with disease-causing agents and epidemic. 20. Therefore man shall eat meat with caution from such animals considered unclean in this manner, which the pig is to be mentioned as a decisive part. 21. Meat of pigs is not forbidden to man as food, but it is unclean to him if he considers the disease-causing agents, and so he shall exercise caution in good measure, for truly the meat of the omnivorous animals is different in susceptibility of disease-causing agents than the meat of other animals, to which however also caution and heed shall be paid, as also to all other food, if it is no longer fresh or is wilted or spoiled. 22. Through the guidance of creation also is given that man is omnivorous, but to whom is ordered heed and caution, so he only shall ingest food which is free of disease-causing agents and is in part prepared by himself. 23. And this means therefore, that by the guidance of creation man shall stand above the mode of life of plants and of animals, so he therefore shall be well-mannered, kind and polite, whereby he differentiates himself in another way from animals and from plants. 24. Truly therefore, everything is given to man as food whatever is edible of plants and fruits and animals, but he shall practice heed and caution and discrimination, because his health is in danger in regard to spoiled and also to poisonous food which flourisheth and liveth in community with the non-poisonous. 25. And truly it is injustice and wicked doing, if you are forbidden to eat of all the edible by the mighty and seducers and sect masters, because the guidance of creation alloweth everything edible to flourish so that it is eaten and serves as food. 26. But it is given that everything inedible and poisonous shall be destroyed and removed by man, so that man and life in general is not endangered, which are plants and animals and everything given according to its kind, which devour and remove everything poisonous and everything diseased, and therefore all carcasses and other decaying matter, which occurreth among all life. 27. And the guidance of creation saith that life shall be separated, each according to its own kind, but that every life shall live according to its own kind, and that every life also shall live of the other. Therefore the plants of the food of the minute animals and of water, and the animals of the plants and fruit and of minute animals and of other animals of all kinds. 28. But unto man is given that he shall be guardian and usufructuary over everything in good manner, and that he nourish himself with everything which is alive in lower manner than himself. So given unto him in wise guidance are all plants and fruits and all minute animals and animals for food, if they are non-poisonous and unspoiled. 29. Therefore man is guardian and usufructuary over everything which is given unto him in any form, and therefore he stands over everything as also over any animals and over all life of the world of plants and fruits. 30. And thus therefrom is recognizable that man by the wise guidance of creation shall be well-mannered, thinking and standing over everything in just manner and in common sense and understanding, that he shall also recognize the difference between himself and the animals. 31. And recognizable through the guidance of creation is that man shall be cleanly in his well-manneredness, that he does not carry any animals and vermin on himself, because this is injurious to the security of his health. 32. Therefore man shall not allow animals or vermin to live on himself, and also not in places where he sleepeth.